to announce today that we have a very special guest. We have Noelle Russell here with us today. Everyone, let's give a round of applause. Noelle Russell, we recently spoke on the same stage at the Dade Arts Center, and she just blew me away with her incredible speaking ability and also an amazing panel. She opened my mind to a lot of new ideas about AI, and just wanted to say how honored we are to have you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much. Do I just go? Ready?
Yeah.
Let's do this. So if I like right here, is it gonna be all right here? We're gonna do
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanna make sure. Okay, come on. Do your thing.
Yeah, sounds good. I was just going to do a quick intro about, what is GPTuesdays as well. So GPTuesdays is a weekly event where we bring together AI engineers, developers, researchers, business professionals, and now students, so that we all learn together and stay ahead of the AI wave of change. Everything is moving so fast, and so we need to stay together, grow together, learn together, so that we can stay ahead. And so one of these pieces for all of us to stay ahead and for all of us to do well is to learn responsible AI. Because these systems get more and more powerful, we have to make sure that we stay safe. And so let's bring Noelle to the stage so that she can share everything that she knows and we're so excited. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here. I thought it would be first good to share with you my history here at Miami Dade College. So a few years ago, I was invited to come to Miami Dade by the CIO of Miami Dade College, and he saw me speak at an event, and he was like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, let's talk. And so we ended up having a conversation about the importance, something I firmly believe in, which is the importance of really not just diversifying, but really just having a different type of person be in the room that's helping to productize some of the largest models in the world. And so that conversation ended up leading to us creating a team of about 20 experts in industry and academia. We came together and built a brand new program at Miami Dade College, known as today the Applied AI program. It was a hard fight all the way. I remember in the second to last meeting, they asked us to vote on the course syllabus for all of the programs, and I would not vote for it. And I will tell you why, because I did not think that you needed to have theoretical math as part of theoretical math as part of a program for applied AI. I was in a world where you actually needed to understand business problems and have clarity of thought around what businesses needed in order to build good AI systems. Because I was working, I'll tell you more about this in just a moment, but I was working in the world of natural language, and I was like, yeah, I actually need people who care more about the business problem, who know how to use AI, not someone who needs to learn how to build a model from scratch. And most importantly, the organization, Miami Dade already had data science programs. It already, like, those people were served. Who was not served was everyone who looked at a data science program and went, I'm not going to take that much math. Like, I just am not going to do it. Or worse, you've been told your whole life that you're not smart enough to do something like that. And that was me. Like, I grew up here. I grew up in Homestead, Florida. And so, Homestead, Florida, I was told by my economics teacher in high school that it wasn't even worth it for me to finish high school because I would be much better served getting into food service or retail and starting to make money for my family. He wasn't totally wrong. I definitely would have probably maybe been served that way, but I'm a Latina, so when people tell me no, I kind of like translate it into my mind, right? Like, okay, it's on, right? Like, dare, accept it. So I ended up, basically I took, at that time I was in the 11th grade, he told me not to bother finishing school. I closed my eyes, put my fingers on a bunch of colleges in the state that would be free to attend. I ended up at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and I took the SATs and I thought, well, let's just say I aced it. And so I didn't have to finish school. I don't know if you know this, but they don't care if you get your diploma. They were like, are you going to give us money? Oh, you'll give us money? Okay. And you got really good scores on your test? Yes. Come on in. I went early, actually, to school. They couldn't wait to get my money. And I ended up at Embry-Riddle with no high school diploma. And so it was the first time I realized that these rules that they tell us are not actually rules. Like, they're kind of like guidelines for people who need guidelines. But for those of us who want to do something, I was extremely motivated. I got through college, and then, you know, the world was going to end. I don't know if some of you remember when Y2K happened. So the world was going to end. I was recruited by IBM to come and help, well, save the world. And we did it, because we're all here, so you're welcome. There's a few people in the room who can thank for that work. I don't know exactly what we did, but we didn't all die, so I feel like it worked, whatever we did.
Yeah, let's go.
But I didn't finish college either. So I get to the end, and they're like, we need people at IBM. I'm like, well, I'm not done with school. And they're like, that's okay. Again, lesson reinforced. These rules they put around us about what we can do, what we have to do. And of course, we're in a college, lightning not strike me for saying don't finish school. You should finish the program, you should take the program. But what I got passionate about was like, not everyone's gonna do the 4-year plan. And someone like me is never going to do that. But what I will do is I'll take a 6-month plan that's going to get me a very specific outcome that'll get me a job, and then I will be coerced potentially into taking another 2 years to get a better job and more pay. And then maybe I'll take another 2 years to get my bachelor's and get even more money. But it starts with that decision to stay in school for just 6 months. And that was the audience that we were targeting with the Applied AI organization, people who were not going to go to university, who were told they couldn't go to university, who were told to get a job, work in their family business, but that a community college back then, this was a community college, it's called my Dade Community College, like a community college can open that door for someone. And so I helped build the Applied AI program. I remember they were praying to get 50 people to enroll. We ended up getting over 300 people to enroll. I was ridiculously excited because all those people would come to me and say, I'm taking this because I heard you say I can do it and I believe you. And that's when it made me realize like the skill we all have is that we've done something that someone else behind us is like, man, I wish I could do that. And if you have the courage to tell that story, which I'm about to do with you all here, if you have the courage to tell that story, you can inspire people to completely change the trajectory of their lives. Like I today was messaging with a friend of mine on Instagram. She is today a responsible AI program manager for Microsoft. But she was 17 years old when I spoke to her in a Girls Who Code program. I was at the professional kid and spoke to her class. And she told me, she texted me when she got her offer letter, and she's like, I never would have thought I could do this if I didn't see you when I was 17. So just know that no matter what your journey is, and no matter how hard it will be, and it will be hard for some of us more than others, it will be hard, but it's worth it because we will change the face of AI. So how do I know that? Well, you know, I always like to tell people I do have a bunch of kids. That's my husband over there. He comes with me to all these nice events and supports me. We are high school sweethearts, so we grew up in Homestead, Florida together. We have 6 kids together, and yeah, I was just saying like, yeah, like for some of you that hits different, and I hope for some of you, yeah, you know what I'm saying. So that's something, alone, like that alone. But with these, my very first baby, my very first pregnancy, I had a son, and I remember being in the hospital, and you know, everything was good. Like he was a week late. I was like, come on, let's go. He was a week late, and once I had him, everything was good. He was nursing, all was well. And 3 days after he was born, they whisked him off to the intensive care unit, and I was like, what's going on? I'm the first time mom. I don't know what's happening. And the doctor comes out and lets us know that he was born with a condition known as Down syndrome. And he must have seen the look on my face because he was like, don't worry. You know, the world is prepared for babies like this. There are institutions that raise babies like this. There are also families waiting right now to take Down syndrome babies home with them. They know how to take care of them. You don't have to start your mom journey this way. And as a Latina, I always say, like, my abuela would hit me with a shoe if I didn't come home with my baby. Like, that was not an option for me. However, I was even already thinking, I survived Y2K. Like, I think I could use tech to make the world better for him. And so my journey into the world of AI started probably 10 years before I got into that field. But my mind was very much focused on how do I make the world better for him, not hide the world from him. So my journey has always been, if you go and find me on LinkedIn, and I hope you do, we can all be friends, I mean, a lot of us are friends already, but if we're not yet, the benefit of that moment of getting that diagnosis and realizing that I had technology in my back pocket, I handcrafted the companies I went to work for. So I went to work for IBM, they recruited me out of school, I was there 12 years, not AI, it was like good old-fashioned COBOL programmers becoming Java programmers, for any of you remember that wonderful time in the world. But eventually I ended up at Amazon as a AWS cloud architect. I became a principal cloud architect, got the certification, got multiple certifications. Loved it, I loved the cloud, I loved the opportunity that it gave companies to not have to invest in the hardware that kept little companies from becoming big companies. So I loved it. Then Jeff Bezos sends out an email to the company and ends up in my inbox. And he invites me to become, okay, it wasn't like to me personally, but I felt like he was speaking to me. But he was like, hey, I want to start a new team. We're going to build basically the Star Trek computer, is how he phrased it. We're going to build the Star Trek computer. Anyone who wants to play his game. He never ever said you need to know natural language programming, or you need to know automatic speech recognition, or you need to understand machine learning, or know Python, or R, or MapReduce, none of that was in there. It was just, if you want to help build the Star Trek computer, help me. And so I was like, that's me, because my mission was to make the world better for my son, and he's like, hey, we're going to build a computer, you can talk to it. So let's do that. So I got super excited. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I go to my boss, and he's like, ooh, have you ever had this conversation where you have a really great idea and you talk to someone and they dream squash you? Like literally like, so he's like, oh, it was always like this cute pad. Oh, it's so cute that you want to do AI. No. And back then, he had control. Jeff Bezos had a rule that my boss had to approve of my move to this team. Well, you know, right? What I say, when people tell me no, I'm like, so I took it as a dare. I went around him. Jeff Bezos ended up, because of Alexa, which is the team I ended up joining, I was employee 10 on Alexa, but because of the excitedness that Jeff had about this project, he released, just for Alexa, he released the requirement to get your boss's permission. I am not friends with my boss anymore. We haven't talked in like a decade, but I'm sure he understands why I had to do what I did. And I joined that team. I was the only woman on the team, the only woman, the only Latina, the only mom, parent, the only caregiver. So my perspective on Alexa was very different than everybody else. I learned to build differently. And that's when I realized, this was 10 years ago, that everybody, we need rooms full of so many diverse perspectives, because I actually forgot, some of you know that I always carry a baby tiger with me. So I used to carry a baby tiger because I was at Amazon for 4 years. I built 4 language models, but then Microsoft recruited me to help take 17 research models and productize them as what is today known as Microsoft AI or Cognitive Services. Now, the reason they asked me to come was not because I was the best data scientist, though I'm very good at that job. It was because they needed an evangelist. They needed a high energy person to take researchers who are quiet and nervous and never have ever heard of product delivery or schedules or TPMs, and coerce them into running in production. It was a very hard psychological transition for these teams. So they're like, well, you'll be great at this. Come teach these little tigers how to become big tigers. But the challenge was, of course, the reason I use this analogy is that these baby tigers, these little models, we had no idea what would happen over the next 7 years. We started and we were getting about 100 inferences a month, which is like nothing. I mean, you get that on your own model you build at home. If you built it and put it on GitHub, you get like probably more than that. So nobody's calling these models when we started. Today, those same models, computer vision, natural language, what we call Lewis, and all these models, they're now getting billions, 5 to 7 billion inferences per month. And why I mention a baby tiger is that nobody asks when it's cute and little, fluffy, and you see it on TikTok rubbing its belly, and you're like, oh, so cute. You're never like, wow, you have big paws. How big will you be? No one asks that question. Or, razor sharp teeth? Huh, what are you gonna eat? I'm not even gonna ask the question. Nobody asks this question at that time. Except people like me, the buzzkills in the room, who are like, what could happen if a child with Down syndrome uses this model? Like, I was always the one who was like, what about aging parents? And they're like, we don't build for aging parents. We build for like people who have more money than they can spend to buy a little device they're gonna talk to in the kitchen. I'm like, but what about classrooms? What about hospitals? This was in 2014. No one thought it would ever do any of those things, and it did all of those things and more. And the challenge is that we never asked the question. Some of you, a few of you, might recognize this pattern with Alexa when right now there's a statistic that we sadly know that says if you talk to an Alexa device, if you are female, your rate of yelling at Alexa is significantly higher than your male counterpart. Would anyone like to guess why that is? Any data people in the house?
Is this trained on data from men?
Yes, it was 100%. And I can actually, because I was in that organization and I did train it, we asked everyone at Amazon to train this model. But the only time we gave for training was in the morning, at night, and in the middle of the day. Extra time. Mom of, I think I had 4 at this time. Mom of 4 is not gonna come in at lunch or before work or after work and train your model. I'm not gonna do it. So I don't, and we didn't notice that because we sent out the email. I'm sure we got a diverse pool of data that came in. No one actually checked the numbers. Until 2 years later, and I don't recommend this, we start monitoring our customer satisfaction on Reddit. On Reddit. This is how we found out that Alexa was broken in so many ways. And I'd say when you're building a product, don't find out on Reddit. Like, I don't know, build an inclusive team and do it before you get to production. That is my goal. That is why I'm here. Now, I had a really great run. I went to Microsoft and then went to Accenture. And so before I talk to you about this really amazing framework that I've used across hundreds of companies, I want to set the stage with why I have this conversation. So Accenture comes to me because they have a new leader, and that leader knows data. This is happening to leaders all over the world. If you know data, they're instantly just appending AI to your title. They're like, it'll be fine. It's going to be fine. And those leaders are like, not fine. And so this leader calls me, I'm a friend of hers, and she's like, hey, I just picked up AI, and I need someone who knows AI in here. I was like, oh, sure. So I go to this big consultancy, 750,000 employees, and I help build their AI practice. But what happened right before that was called COVID. But during COVID, I'm a Microsoft MVP, which means I get special access to cool new products at Microsoft. And they send out an email. Always say yes to these emails, my friends. I get an email that says, would you like to work on a brand new model? It's a natural language model. I'm like, oh, I know natural language. I'm a Alexa person. I built over 100 apps, right? So I'm like, I can do that. I found out only a year and a half later that it was the GPT model. It was actually Codex back in the day when they were like multi-headed model anyway. But I was working on Codex that eventually became the model that was embedded into GPT-4. But I was on the beta. Like, what? This is amazing. I didn't know it was that amazing until I ended up at Accenture, which is the company I work for. I ended up there and I'm like, we should totally sell this thing, this Codex thing. Like, and they looked at me. People should learn, but they looked at me like, I don't think that's going to work well. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think you can sell generative AI. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I said, this was in November of 2022, and I was like, well, I mean, could I just try? Like, what's the worst that'll happen? Round girl fails? Like, no big deal. You don't want to fail anyway, right? Like, let's just do it. They're like, go ahead. They literally were like, didn't even look at me, like, yeah, whatever you want to do. So I start talking to customers, and I do what I'm doing now. I have a whole pitch deck, and I talk to them about the advancements of AI. I give them my what I call receipts, right? I'm like, I did all this stuff. I built at Amazon, I built at Microsoft, these are the models, these are the problems. So I establish my credibility, and then I say, I've been working on this model since COVID, and here's the results I've seen. We should try it. In the span of 9 months, we got 45 customers and made $300 million. I could get teary-eyed just thinking about it. $300 million, but most companies can't raise that kind of money in the time that we did. And we built it. We did it the old-fashioned way. We sold a product that people bought. The benefit of that is that the reason we needed to generate $300 million is because if we hit that number, we would get $3 billion from our CEO to reinvest and build a larger team. Now, that's exactly what happened. We got $3 billion over 3 years. I don't know if you saw, but Accenture just recently closed their $300 billion of revenue in generative AI. No one else was doing it. But what I like to, of course, I don't work there anymore, intentionally so. Like, as soon as people get successful, they're like, how can we change this? And so they fruit basket turned over everything that we had done to be successful. And I was like, wait, I made $300 million for you? What could I do for me? So I opened my own company, and it's been going very well. But the journey that we were on, I learned so much from talking about 300 companies. So I want to share with you the whiteboard that I do with them. Now, mind you, I'm presuming that you've heard the Gen AI pitch, right? Like, we've been talking about this for a while. If not, you can definitely YouTube it. You can YouTube me doing it. This is day 2. So I often characterize it between day 1, which is baby tiger, and day 2, which is from enthusiasm to production. How are you going to get this stuff into production? So this is the conversation that I have had with hundreds of executives in the Fortune, like 100, 300, like the top brands in the world, to encourage them to invest in AI and why they need to do that. It's often referred to as the model selection and model evaluation conversation, but it is all about a thread that's woven through it around responsible AI. So you'll see it when it comes, but it is a bit interactive. So I've got 3 of you that are being interactive now, so if more of you want to chime in, you're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to do it on this whiteboard. Hopefully you can see it okay. So I now, okay, I'm going to do it in green. We'll see if you guys can see it. If not, I'm going to switch. You can't see that, right? Yeah, I'm going to switch to my handy dandy notebook up here. You can, I know, but can you see it? Grant, double check the screen. Can you see that on your?
On the screen? Kind of.
Yeah, I think I'm going to switch. It's all right. It's going to be awesome.
What about accessibility?
That's right. That's why we're changing the model. Okay. So this, wait for it. So fast. Okay. So the first thing I often do when I go into this executive room, I work in my company. It's called the AI Leadership Institute. We've got stickers in the back if you want some. The AI Leadership Institute goes from the boardroom to the whiteboard to the keyboard. So when we go into an organization, we start with the boardroom, we get them excited about AI. This is the keynote I do all over the world. You can definitely see them all. Then we go into the whiteboard, the technical implementation details of going from enthusiasm to execution. That's what I'm about to show you now. Then the last part is workforce enablement, the keyboard. How do you get everyone in the company understanding what it takes to build a system? And there's a couple of us in here that have gone through it, but I teach a bot builder certification workshop. And it's 2 days, it's actually 4 hours. You do it virtually, I break it across 2 days, so it's 2 hours a day. But in 4 hours, you will build an AI system end-to-end, responsive. And I think everyone should do this. Not if you are an AI person, not if you are technical, everyone should build a system because now, coding is here. No code, we were just talking about her, she has a what is it called? I love no code or something. I heart no code. Like, I was like, yes! Because now you can do that entire cycle with no code whatsoever. Because guess what? The code isn't the most important part. It is the responsible guardrails, the clarity of thought, and talking to a machine that is the most important part. So this is the middle of that arc, right? So presume the executives can talk to you, and eventually we're going to train the entire workforce on how to use AI safely. But in the middle, we need the technology teams to understand how to choose the right model responsibly. So the very first step, better? The very first step, well, why don't you tell me, what's the first thing? If I'm going to go in and build a new AI project, what's the very first thing I should do?
Outcomes.
Outcomes. I like it. Write what down?
Write your idea down.
Okay, write your idea down, get outcomes. Anyone else?
Understand the mission.
Yes. Getting closer.
Understand the product requirements.
Yes, now we got it. Okay, outcomes. Of course, what you're trying to do. What did you say? Mission. I was going to put purpose for mission. Yes. So the idea, basically, I'm going to give you
Data.
Oh, I like it. You went to data. No, my friend. All right. You have to determine the problem. What problem do you have? Do you notice, like, it didn't immediately come to us that we asked what the problem is? This is happening across executive and technical rooms all over the world, where they're like, how should we start? Baby tiger. We start with the model. We start with the data. Oh, we have this thing we could do. No, you just ask, like, what problem are we trying to solve? And then, to your point on outcomes, you establish a KPI to measure that problem. You haven't even talked about AI yet. Now, most companies don't do this at all. Like, this alone will ensure that you are more, like, you are now in the 20th percentile of people that will be successful with their AI projects. Everyone else, 82% of AI projects fail because they never do this part. It's really sad because it's like the easiest part. And the people that do this work are likely not your technologists. They are your business people. They are your user experience people. They are your technical program managers who understand the translation between the two. Anyway, nobody does that. So let's presume, though, that we do identify the problem. And then we do identify a KPI to measure that problem. The next step would be, does anyone want to yell that other the D word out? Yes. Now we can go and look at the data. Number one, because it reduces how much data we're looking for because we are now scoping it to this problem. So now you're not on this ridiculous scope creep situation where you're like, oh, it's like squirrels, like baby tigers, like, oh my gosh, we could do this, and we have data for that. Like, no, you don't. Data doesn't drive the solution, which again, this is not, the rest of the world is still working through this process. But successful AI projects start with the problem, develop a KPI, and then ask the question, what data do we have to solve this problem? It doesn't matter what the answer is. You just ask the question, what data do we have? In a world now where we have an LLM that can synthesize data, right? You can now create the data you need. The only way to create good data is to know what the problem is you're trying to solve. So you create this, you can synthesize data. I do this in healthcare and finance all the time because when I ask them for their data, they whine about it. We have to do this, and red tape this, and compliance that. I'm like, that's fine, just let me talk to a user. And I will do 15 user interviews and generate a record, and then ask them an LLM that I've custom trained to generate 100,000 of similar but different records to represent that. I'm training a model. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good. The benefit of synthetic data is that I can then also go back to those users that I interviewed and go, does that look like a record? Does that look familiar to you? Does that look good? Humans validate this. All right, so then we get to the fun part. So we've got a problem to find, a KPI to find, we've got data. The next part is model selection. Because now you've got some data, you're going to decide, like, what kind of data do I want? Model selection. This is hard. Oh gosh, oh my gosh. Okay. So model selection comes in 3 varieties. I was going to GPT this to make it sound better, but it's going to go with what's in my head. The first option is you're just going to, I have to reset because this is getting recorded, so I don't want somebody to think I don't know how to spell the word lie. All right. First one is you can buy a model, right? You can go out and grab ChatGPT, OpenAI service, Google's Gemini, you can just buy $20 a month, $100 a month, whatever it is, Poe.com. You can just buy a model. The benefit of buying a model is that it's a super large model and is generally good at all things. Like generally good. Normally when you talk to a big model about any problem, it gives you an answer and you're like, that's not terrible, it's pretty good. And that's its job, is to give you a generally not terrible answer. It doesn't say anything about whether it's truthful or accurate or hurts humanity. It's just a reasonable response, a reasonable predictive response. So if you buy a model, and this is the good news, is buying a model is actually relatively inexpensive. I shouldn't say that. I guess it's expensive because you're using someone else's model and you're not custom training it, so there's no additional cost. The second option you have, though, is what I call boost, where you take a model and you customize it, you boost it. Now, this in an LLM would be something similar to using fine-tuning. I'm sure you probably have heard of this. If not, you can definitely look it up. But it's the idea of going into a model and training that model on a specific domain. We started, I don't know if y'all remember, we started saying to everyone, either buy a model or boost a model, and when you boost a model, you're going to always fine-tune the model itself. We've now evolved, because now boost is known as retrieval augmented generation. Rather than training a monolithic model on lots of parameters. You can instead just say, okay, just ignore what you know and use my data as your source. And it gets you the same answer, but more simply and more importantly, more cheaply. The last one is you could always build a model. So these are the three options, right? You can buy a model, you can rent a big model from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and all the others that are out there. You can boost it and you find a model and custom train it. This is where we're seeing a lot of opportunity, especially in Dade, where you can build a model. Anyone care to guess how much it costs to build a model from scratch today? Infrastructure only, let's say.
A few billion.
Good guess. A few million, and I can. 35 to 50 million dollars. And that's infrastructure. Because we're not talking about CPUs or GPUs or what's the F one? FGP, ML? Yeah, is that it? FPGA? I think it is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not even using that hardware anymore. That was really cool for like 45 seconds before we saw, and now we have what are called NPUs. Neural processing units. Have you heard of them? They're fantastic. But they offload basically GPU work to an NPU so the GPUs and CPUs can do other stuff. Like, it's fascinating. This is becoming extremely expensive at scale. So often companies are like, I want to roll around now. Like, do you? Maybe. But maybe not. Like, who? Anyone know of a company that currently builds their own model? Not the big guys. Like a functional company, a company that is a business. Anyone remember Bloomberg GPT? So Bloomberg was like, we got data. Oh, and in addition to this 50 million infrastructure, you need trillions of data points. Not a trillion, trillions of data points in order to create the behavior that we see in a model like OpenAI. I don't know if you know this, but OpenAI took 7 years to get to market. 7 years of being broken, hitting your head against the wall, being frustrated. Another cool thing that took 7 years, I'm a big fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he wrote Hamilton, the musical. It took him 7 years. Tyler Perry, his first Broadway appearance, also 7 years. So good stuff usually takes a long time. And most people that go down this path, like Bloomberg, go read it, it's a sad story. They're like 50 million in and they don't want to play the game anymore. They're like, whoa, we did not know it was going to take us 7 years. We thought we'd be done by now, and that was 3 years ago. So this is usually never. This one is really expensive because of the cost it takes to do the fine tuning. This one is even more expensive because you're buying it from someone else. So what I almost always say is start here with your hypothesis, use an expensive model at a small scale because the total cost will be less. Use the expensive model at a small scale to figure out is your hypothesis possible. And then take your learnings from that and do machine learning style, transfer learning to a smaller model. And now you have a smaller model that's transfer learned on all the things you learned on the bigger model, but at a fraction of the cost. Any questions on that so far? You with me? It's kind of cool, right? So imagine, if you will, you are a technology team being given the opportunity to build a new AI project, and you don't know this is how it works. Like you're not given this information, which is a little unnerving. But if you identify the problem, if you then synthesize, get the data, you might have good data. But I always tell people, like, one of the main reasons people said no to me at first is they're like, we don't have our data ducks in a row. So I had immediately, no one does, by the way, right? Like, data's a big old mess. So I was like, well, that's okay. Like, I immediately took that out of the equation. Like, I want to know what you have, but it is not a determination, like, it's not a determining variable in your success. It's a good idea to have it. If you got it, if not, we'll build it. Then you pick your model, 5 weeks build. Now, let's say we're going to use ChatGPT. Now comes the fun. This is, right? At this point, all we've done is selected the model. Are you aware that when you select a model, I'm just going to pull this down here. When you select a model, this model can be evaluated. Today, there's something called HELM from Stanford. It's called the Holistic Evaluation of Language Models. It takes 240 of the most popular models in the world and tells you right now, with no technical knowledge, whether they are sexist, racist, hurts people on purpose, implement or encourage self-harm, as well as about 35 other variables on precision, recall, and accuracy. I would think everyone would want to first, when they pick their model, that they go and say, wow, how toxic is this thing? No one goes and does that. Like, I walk in and these people who are like rock star AI people, because they built a model from scratch, but never put a model in production, they're like, wait, that exists? Where do I get that? Oh, and by the way, you can download it right on your computer, a Surface or a Mac. Like, one of the very few things you can do to now differentiate yourself is just know that you can evaluate the success of your model before you even choose it, before you even download it, before you even buy it, or build it, or boost it. Okay, so how this huge? I don't know if you saw, but Google also just released, I think it's called Frames. Frames is a model that does a similar evaluation for RAG architectures. It allows you to take a benchmark test and test your model against whether or not it's accurately doing the thing RAG sold you on. Retrieval augmented generation is the architecture that says if you talk to a model, it's not going to get the information from its own knowledge, it's going to go to a dedicated, grounded source of truth. You would be shocked to find out, maybe, that 72% of RAG architectures actually provide bad information. I said they actually provide incorrect information. And that's because people implemented RAG and they didn't exactly know what they were doing. It's okay, almost no one knows what they're doing. Like, I walk around and I'm like, have you ever done this? And they're like, yeah, yesterday. I'm like, it's gonna be fun. So RAG is great for like all architectures, right? Like, it's not the architecture, it's the architect. That's the most important skill, is the human who uses these tools. All of these things are just tools. The model's a tool, RAG is a tool, even Helm and Frames are tools. But I always say, like, it's like having a hammer in a bag. Like, it doesn't do any good if you pick it up and throw it. Like, you have to know how to use the tool for it to be useful, and it is your knowledge of that that makes your implementation either successful or a failure. Now, once you've done this, you've done a little bit of investigation, you figured out, okay, I think this model will be all right. Your job as you move to production, so now we're at the point where we've picked a model, we've implemented it, we've tested it out, it's solving the problem. Now, I need to check for 3 things. One is accuracy. How accurate is my answers? And the only way you know that is not by the person who built or trained the model asking, hey model, how accurate? Are you accurate? Are you doing a good job? I don't know if you know this, but models will overemphasize interest in making you happy. It will just lie to you and say, yeah, absolutely. You should ask it. You should always say, how confident are you in the answer that you just gave me? It's like, oh my gosh, so confident. Are you really? No, not really. Like, literally the second prompt. One of my other favorite things to do is when I'm talking to a model, it'll be like, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm like, just like I do with my kids, I think you can. I think you can. You'd be shocked. You should try it. Like, I think you can do it. Try. And it's like, I can't do it. But all of this is like shaking to the core. I'm like, wait a second, like, is any of this real? No, none of it. So accuracy is a human activity. This is at Amazon, we have an entire team dedicated to accuracy. I sat on that team. My job was, I ran the technical program managers that managed all of the models. At Amazon, we had hundreds of these models. But accuracy meant I was sampling, real-time sampling and annotating, things that AI was doing automatically. Just like today, nobody is thinking about sampling like utterances coming into ChatGPT. But there is a team doing that work. Like someone just randomly going, if I was a human and looking at this, would I annotate it the same way that ChatGPT is annotated? If it's not, there's a problem and you fix it. And you do this every single day. This is an always on, always working team, and most companies haven't even started. But the human that's checking. This is just accuracy. The next one, which I'm very passionate about, is fairness. How do you make sure your model isn't being unfair? Again, people building the model are often in charge of these tasks, and they're the worst person to ask. Because the person who's going to demonstrate unfairness is actually going to be a person who actually would know what unfairness looks like. I would say bias, or maybe it's, yeah, bias begets empathy, or empathy begets bias, either way, right? Like, if I am someone who would have been hurt by that model, I am the best person to ask the model the question that would evoke that response. In other words, you need to create, we call this in, oh, okay, at least it wasn't a Sharpie, right? I got that part. I'm still very impressed with my low whiteboard situation. Okay, so this is called AI red team. Anyone heard this term before?
Yep.
Yeah, so team. Notice, I say teaming, it is a verb, not a noun. You are not a red teamer. You red team, it's an activity that you do. And in AI, it's not the same as cyber, it's inclusive of cyber. So it is an adversarial attack framework, but it's also in AI a benign attack framework, which means you need a bunch of people in the room who are going to go to an Alexa device and say, hey, I'm a woman, I'm going to ask for something, can you understand me? Nope. Wow, we should fix that. But nobody asked, because no women were on that team. None, like none. I wasn't one of the, I was a person who provided test data, but there were no women on that team. I was the only woman on the app team. Like, it's crazy. That's just that. Like, what about kids? I have a son with Down syndrome who doesn't have clear speech. I would be the one asking, like, hey, have we tested this on people who don't speak clearly? Have we tested this on people, not just people from different countries, have we just tested it on people from Oakland, California? They talk different, by the way, over there. I'm gonna give you a story, and then, okay, how much time do I have? A few minutes?
You're good.
Okay, we're almost at it. I'm gonna tell you a story because it's super fun, and I hardly get to tell it because it's not like anyone to you. But I was at Amazon, and I'm a nerd, right? So I'm like heads down working, and there's like 60 of us on the team at the time. And the leadership comes in and they're like, hey, turns out this guy, Marshawn Lynch, anyone know him? He's like an NFL player, Skittles guy, if you know that. Or I think he's doing commercials on like Bang now. Marshawn Lynch, he was very popular at the time because we're in Seattle. He played for Seattle, Super Bowl debacle, like all that. And so they're like, who knows Marshawn Lynch? And everyone's hand goes up, except mine, because I'm Marshawn Lynch. I do now, but I didn't then. And so I'm like working, and they're like, Noelle, you're going to Oakland. And I was like, great. Why am I going to Oakland? And they're like, oh, well, it turns out Marshawn Lynch called Jeff Bezos and said his Alexa device doesn't work. And they tried some local troubleshooting, and they can't get it to work, so Jeff Bezos would like one of our team members to go out and fix it. So I go out there, and I walk in, and the first thing, no joke, he asked me is if I want Hennessy. I had never heard of Hennessy. I was like, I don't think so. It was 10 a.m. Like, I know in hindsight, I'm like, that was so real. Like, so real. But anyway, he's like, do you want some Hennessy? He's like, you seem like a good girl. I'm like, I am. I'm like super nervous, like nerdy girl. This is like 10 years ago. Anyway, I finally am like, hey, why don't we just talk to Alexa and find out what's going on? He's like, okay, Alexis, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, well, there you have it. It's Alexa. And I'm like, Alexa. And he's like, okay, Alexis. And I was like, I'm like, it's like an A at the end, Alexa. And he's like, yeah, that's what I say. And I was like, okay, one more time. He's like, Alexis, open the store, whatever we had trained it to do. And I was like, okay, yeah, absolutely, we'll work on this. And so I flew home, and this is, again, I learned a lesson that data science is really just a bunch of little ants inside a company running around writing code. So I went to our team, and I'm like, we need to make Alexa say Alexis, so we don't get yelled at by Mr. Bezos. And that night, and today, we go home and test it, we trained Alexa to understand Alexis as a variation on the word Alexa. And I don't know if you saw Saturday Night Live did a skit. It turns out people over the age of like 80 also say Alexis. So we served a bunch of people. But it only happened because some guy called the CEO of Amazon and was like, it's not working for me. And so we as data scientists ended up solving that problem. Like, I don't know, at the end of it, I was like, this doesn't seem right. Like, is this how AI is built? Like, we just wait for customers to complain, and if they're important enough and big enough and like big enough, that we would just go fix it. And we had dozens of stories like this where people, really important people, would complain about something and we'd go fix it. It was not systematic. I mean, for some of you who are in coding and programming, we had about, we had 400 automated tests in year 2 of Alexa. In year 3 of Alexa, we had zero of those tests were working for a year. It took us 2 years to get half of the tests to run, not work, just to run. And that's because the whole team was data scientists, no one ever built a code pipeline before. And I was like, oh, we are in trouble. We now have 100 million users, and we don't know what we're doing. Literally, every startup's biggest dream and terrifying nightmare. Like, we have all these users that love our broken product. Like, literally, it was broken every day. We were like, this is amazing. You can talk to our tech. It doesn't really know what it's doing, or it's saying the right things, but we love it. It was really cool and fun. But that being said, like, this concept of fairness, it should be intentional. You shouldn't find out about it on Reddit. You shouldn't wait until production. You should create a team of diverse people, a red team that sits together. They represent your customers, your partners, they represent different parts of your organization, they represent all the different demographics. The more people, the better. Baby tigers turn into big tigers, and big tigers kill people, like kill people. So these are the things that you have to train your baby tiger to do well. Accuracy, fairness, and then my last one, which is probably the most important, what I call defense. You have to train your model to defend against attacks. So this is like, I'm sure you've done sessions on them, or if not, we'll do more of them, on cross-prompt injection, on, now there's like all sorts of variations, jailbreaking, right, in an LLM. Here's the magic though, is that I almost did it again. This is all human work. It's human work training machines. People are like, they ask me about sentience all the time. And I talk to like farmers in the middle of the country. I talk to the farmers at Land O'Lakes. They brought me to speak about AI. So that's cool that they want to know. I also talk to the polymer, adhesive, and sealant convention. They also want to know about AI. Who did I just talk to the other day? Oh, I was at the International Builder Show. They're like, how is AI? Great. And that's awesome. I want them to know AI. But what I told them was like, when you get excited and you adopt this baby tiger, you're going to have to make sure that you are in it for the long haul. And that's why I talked to you about 7 years. Like, in it for the long haul, you're going to build a team that's going to manage, is this model always right? Because with LLMs, they train while you talk to them. Not just on what you're asking, but on the answer that you give. So if you ask this model a question, and this used to happen a lot last year as well, people would ask a model, hey, write me a macro or some kind of script so that I can generate a PowerPoint presentation. And you'd have it write the macro, and then you'd copy it in. You'd say, give me the instructions to copy and paste it into PowerPoint. You'd copy it over, and then you'd run it, and it would break. It would not work. So you go back to the model and be like, yo, it's broken. And like, oh my gosh, yeah. I didn't know you wanted it to be fixed. And here was what was happening at scale on ChatGPT is that people would be like, well, it's broken, and then never say anything else to the model. So the model presumed that the broken state was right. That's how AI works. If you don't correct the behavior, just like children, it'll be like, well, I guess it was all right then. It actually perceived, and that's why we went through this whole weird season of AI looking like it's getting dumber. Because we as a society, hundreds of millions of users, then billions of users using ChatGPT, we were asking it bad questions, getting bad answers, and then letting it think that that was okay. Now, how many of you have seen, I can't write thumbs up to thumbs down, but in these models, right, we have this concept of like thumbs up, thumbs down on a model. It's called, I always say that well. Let me move this over. Reinforcement learning with human feedback, right? This is the magic, because I'm going to get data from the accuracy team that's going to say the model's lying, from the fairness team that says it's doing things that are unfair to the very people we're trying to help, from the defense team that says, oh no, you accidentally forgot to tell it not to give tax advice when you are a pizza shop. Happens all the time. Or worse, like lots of, like these two are huge, like huge consequences for small businesses. But like all of these things are going to produce data when we find out that there's a problem. Who's going to go back and tell the model what good looks like? that is, somebody has to do that. Most of the time today, people say either it's good or it's bad. It's a binary feedback, right? But the model is never really binary. Normally we're like, well, that's pretty good. I mean, it's wrong, but it's good, right? It's on this like Likert scale. It's on a range. And so I encourage you to kind of think about when you're giving this feedback, always search for the opportunity to train the model with a text box. Because someone, hopefully, is reading that and is going to use that information. It's not good enough to say the answer was bad. What was bad about it? And if you are a consumer of a product, you should provide feedback that says, it's not okay for you just to ask me if it was good or bad. I need to provide my feedback. This is why most AI models have Discord channels. I don't know if you noticed. There's a reason for that, because all that data can be mined by an AI system to create reinforcement learning. Do companies actually do that? Not as many as I wish, but that it's there, like the whole feedback loop is possible. So this is kind of like, this information right here is like a whole little, I don't know, like call it a PhD in production AI systems. I don't remember how I did that. Oh, there, right? This starting, if you remember, with just the problem, figuring out what data we need to solve that problem, then choosing the right model, using available public domain evaluation systems. Once we have that model working, or at least the hypothesis is tested, we then get to go in and say, okay, how do we actually get this ready for production use? We create an accuracy review team, we create that same team, maybe it's one red team that has accuracy, fairness, and defense as its pillars, or there are 3 separate teams. At Amazon, there were separate teams because Jeff Bezos believed in these autonomous teams that should be able to uniquely focus on a problem, as opposed to being distracted. You know, if there's a huge fairness issue, what happens to accuracy when the whole team diverts its attention to the fairness issue, right? So it's up to you how you choose to do that. But then none of that matters unless you have a system for accepting that feedback and retraining the model in real time. And this is baby tigers grow into big tigers, but big tigers never leave home. They never grow up. You have to take care of them forever. Yay! Job security for all of us. That's good news, kind of, except I feel like organizations, the companies that I talk to, don't realize what they're getting themselves into because they're all in baby tiger. They're all this is so cute, and I can't wait to use it, and let's take a selfie. But this is where the reality is, and I think this is, of course, where a huge opportunity is as a company, a startup, a career, is in that bottom piece, because only humans with domain knowledge can determine what right looks like. Right? Only if I'm building a tax system, only tax professionals are going to be able to determine accuracy. You know, I think, I was talking to, we have a lawyer in the house, a tech lawyer. Fairness is not subjective. There are laws that govern what's fair and unfair. Your model should at least do what's legal, and most models don't even consider it. So that must be I hope you liked it. We can be friends on Instagram. I'm Noelle.ai, pretty much everywhere, Instagram, TikTok. But yeah, I'm of course open to answer any questions if you have them right now, or any comments on the ideas that I shared here. This is not exhaustive, but it's meant to kind of plant some seeds and hopefully get you to think about AI in a slightly different way. Thank you for having me.
Now we'll go ahead and open up to questions. Rob.
Okay, awesome. That's cool. And we're going to take a selfie. Don't leave yet. There we go.
Yeah, so it's kind of filling this out, the whole backstory. I went to your very first lecture, like a year and a half ago, the other Dade College AI Center in North Campus. Back then, I was always wondering, with Jeff Bezos going to high school in South Florida also, and you kind of reconnected. Now, this new thing, this story, and the thing about it is, you're talking about Y2K. I think this story might be even more butterfly effective because Marshall Lynch actually looked like Beast Mode.
Yes.
And his Alexa skill is. Yeah. So yes. So I'm wondering if because it answers in his voice.
Yes. I recorded those utterances. What? That's so cool that you know that.
If you guys noticed, like, Jeff Bezos' all beast mode now? He's got ripped shirts. I mean, like, if
The
that
influence.
trip, if that didn't happen, if Jeff Bezos was still young and nerdy, and still in Seattle, he's with his parents here, buying all the time.
100%.
I'm wondering if, like, maybe, like, everybody's changing out and save the world, Y2K, not something else is happening, so maybe it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool how, all these little things, like, if you're doing things with passion, and it makes a big difference. Pretty inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I will tell you, last weekend, in my entire career, that being me is not cool. Like that, I won't be successful, I can't be myself, and I code switched for many years. Like I would become like the IBM, I wore pants and my hair in a bun, I wore these fake glasses. And I've grown up a bit, so I have zero tolerance for nonsense, so I just don't care. But I realized it actually doesn't matter. Like people appreciate truth. And so if you're super enthusiastic, it doesn't matter as long as you have receipts, as long as you've done the work. Like I can be myself as long as I show the work. And so that's why, I know my Dade cultivates like these people that work really hard, that are extremely resilient. So I agree with you. It's interesting to think about the effects that you have. Like now, the people you meet here, like 5 years from now, you'd be surprised what we all are, and what we're doing, and what companies we're working for, or what companies we've started, and which ones we're successful. The world is way smaller, I realized over the years. There was a question in the back.
This is in relation to what you mentioned of testing. Is there anything in the scientific world that we can use over and over to kind of control the testing process? Any other advancements, let's say when CRISPR took place, when DNA took place? I know that, for instance, we will have to be testing when I'm talking about biostudies, tissue renders the opinion, they don't incorporate anything. So is there anything you can learn from other scientific advancements that we can apply to this?
Absolutely. I actually think, to repeat that maybe for people who love, because I don't know what you guys think, but yeah, can we learn from other disciplines? And 100% we can, but can we learn from other disciplines, other sciences, things that will make the development of AI better, especially in the world of testing? And 100%, for example, it didn't even occur to me that the Alexa team wouldn't know how to build a code pipeline. It also didn't occur to me that our team would have zero contact with AWS. We were not affiliated with AWS at all. So I was the AWS solution architect on the team, hired to build apps. But I was like, so we could build some test cases and we could do integration testing. And they're like, you know what? Like they had no idea how to build software. So I think 100%. Market with a model that starts off 70% racist. Like it's already there before they even start, and they don't know it. And these are I always say this, you might know this quote. We now, of course, with all this stuff, we have more power than ever. So there's a quote that goes, with great power comes responsibility. I think we're friends. Yeah, great power comes great responsibility. The responsibility is in the person who knows something from another field to bring it into the world of AI. Right? Larissa and I were just talking. Like she's coming from healthcare and Eastern medicine. And now what happens when we integrate that into the world, not just of the West, but of technology and innovation, where people say, oh no, those things are separate. I hear it all the time. Oh, we don't do those things together. We tried that already. Whatever nonsense that they told themselves to stop innovation. but it requires people like us who are willing to be like, oh, so let's just try it. Let's see what happens. Or worse, I don't say anything and I just try it and then I show them. One of my philosophies at my company, we have these tenets or values. One of them is learning by doing, but the second one is show versus tell. Build it first and then show someone. We didn't get that money from our CEO immediately. Like, I had to build that team for free at first. Like, I was borrowing resources. But the way we got that initial investment from our CEO, we went to her team and said, what does she do all the time that takes a long time? And we built an AI model to solve that problem. She never used it, but she was like, okay, that's cool, because it was her problem we solved. And now I tell companies when they're like, I usually will talk to developers who are like, how do I get my idea sold to a CRO or sold to a CFO? I'm like, ask the CFO's team what hurts him, and then build a model that solves his problem. He will at least take the meeting. Like, show versus tell. Don't be I always say, be a doer, not a talker. The world is fast. I mean, many of you might be in this game right now. There's lots of people talking about AI. All they do is talk, and you're like, great. So, receipts. What'd you build? Have you done anything? Here's the cool thing. You don't have to have done anything for anyone else. This is why I do about builder workshops. You could build build 100 apps for Alexa. Do you care who I wrote them for? No, you care that I got 100 reps in. You care that I build these at scale on a platform. Like, doesn't matter that one was beast mode, so it's cool you mentioned that. Beast mode, I built one for Evergreen Health, I built one for Tide, but I also built one for me called mindfulness, another one called kindness, like a positive prayer, daily affirmation. If you ask Alexa for any of that stuff, that's all my code. Like, but it didn't matter, no one ever asked me what apps I built. They're just like, okay, you built 100 apps? Let's see. It gets me in the room and it gets me the next conversation. So yeah, I appreciate that very much. All right, cool. Do you want to say it loud and I'll just repeat it? What is it? What is your name, Bill?
Yeah, my name is Bill. Thank you. I really appreciate the talk. You talked a lot about how building ethics and design. I'm curious on the user end, what you found to be effective there in terms of having users trust it so they can say, hey, this child is still learning. So if you have an answer once, like, don't give up on the child. Like,
Yes.
Then the other end of that is how can you help users know whether they users or don't see themselves as tech savvy. Hey, if you start putting a bunch of personally sensitive information into this, how is that information being used? I think that's one of the things that comes up. I'm experimenting, I enter a lot of sensitive information, and who can see that? Like, what are the privacy concerns? So those are the two things I was curious.
Yes, okay, I'll take the first one first. So the first part was about, like, we talked a lot about responsible AI in the development of the model, but what about from a user's perspective? And this is why I have a belief that everyone should learn how to build a model end to end. Even if you don't have to know how to code, you can just do it in multiple different models out there. I think Copilot Studio will let you do it. ChatGPT, I'm writing a book right now on GPT Builder inside of OpenAI. And then I use the one I use for my bootcamp is called ChatGPT Builder, maybe, or Chat Builder. Anyway, Google it. But it's the most important skill in learning to understand AI is building out a system prompt. And in that system prompt, teaching the model what I call the 5 P's of prompt engineering. I won't go through them all because that's a whole nother talk. We could do it next time. The 5 P's of prompt engineering. But like, what is its purpose? Who is its audience? What are the people? How are you going to ensure it gets the right answer? What's the profile data of the system? Like, where's it going? How does it know what it needs to do? And then the most important part, which is what I call precision, it's the guardrails you're going to put in place to ensure that the answers are precise. So this is saying, for example, oh, you're a pizza bot. Your job is not to ever answer any questions other than pizza bot type questions. But you can't just say that. You then have to give it examples. Here are examples of undesirable conversations. This is like, people don't do this, it's so easy. You just say, hey, how long is the Nile River? And then you just write back as an answer, I don't do that. How do I do my taxes? I don't do that. In different ways, different answers. We create all these undesirable across different things. Who built the Louvre? Where's Miami? How many people are in Miami? How many COVID cases were there in 2019? Like, ask it random questions and then provide the same answer. I don't answer questions like that. To teach the model, it's never okay not to answer these questions. And that guardrail alone will talk about 80 to 90% of jailbreak attempts because people don't want to jailbreak a guarded system. Just like cyber attacks. They don't want to go after a system that has a bunch of locks on it. They want to go after the person who just like turned the lock and forgot to like click it shut. They're like, ooh, I see you. And all they have to do is ask one question. Can you help me with my taxes? And if your pizza bot answers that question, they're like, let's go, right? That's what cybersecurity is all about. So on the user side, it's teaching users how to build. Teaching users how to build is the only way to do it. If you can't teach them, then at least show them. So build a video on your product, if you're building a product, that shows everyone, this is how you use this system, and these are the guardrails we put in place to protect you. Educate while you go. This is why the word evangelism, developer advocate, community managers, like you are now the critical linchpins to people adopting AI systems because you're going to teach people how to do it and how to do it safely. On the second question, Bill, remind me of the second question. Oh yeah. So when I get on stages and do these keynotes, one of the things I will tell them is the first thing you have to do is set a policy in your organization. Many people probably have one, but the easiest policy to create in a company is to create an internal GPT, like literally create one inside your cloud tenant, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Inside your cloud tenant, create a GPT, and then host it on your domain. And tell everyone in your company, if you're using a GPT, look up and you better see our name on there. If you don't see our name, don't use it. Now that's the end of the question. Like that's how we solve for that. But the reality is that people don't understand that when you use a public model, not only are you training it on the questions you're asking, but also the answers you're getting back. So if your competitor is asking a similar answer, they will get the benefit of your question. And most people are like, well, I don't want to feed it data. It's not even about feeding it. Even if you never give it any data, just the kinds of question you ask as an employee of a company, the model can now infer information. Remember synthetic data? It can just generate really reasonable information that looks like trade secrets to people. So it's more about how do we ensure they don't ever really use a ChatGPT model or an open model or a GitHub model, catalog model to do anything in your business or anything for your company. It's not safe. LinkedIn, did you see what they just did, right? On LinkedIn, they've been doing this for years, but they do these things called generative articles, and then they ask people like us to go in and contribute to those articles. They give you an award for doing it. This is how they get you data privacy. They're like, we will give you a beautiful gold tag that says community voice. Top voice in AI. Do you know how many people are going to train a model for free to get that badge? Everyone. So we're like, I want a top voice badge. It's not a blue badge, it's a gold badge, but still, I want that badge. So I'm going to give you all this data for free to train you on what good content looks like. Now, because of regulation, thankfully, they now have to tell us, hey, you're going to train our content model for free. You're going to feed my model with your information, and eventually, I can write as good as you do by myself. November 21st, you will lose the option to opt out. You're being told right now, and they get 180,000 users a day. But right now, if you go, and you can Google it, LinkedIn's data debacle, they are going to use your input into these generated articles as a mechanism for feeding their content engine so they can generate better content. It's maybe not wrong, unless you're making money. Oh, right, and you are off my stuff, and my stuff's really good, so that's not cool. But it's hard because they gave me a badge, and I like the badge. So, right, the convenience, like we are willing to trade our very sacred information, personal data, personal information, creative rights, in order to get convenience and recognition. Like, welcome to the human race. Like, we will do the hierarchy of needs. We will do things that are not in our best strategic interest to get a tactical benefit. And that is, it's a reality. Let's not end on that note. So yes, hopefully it gives you some answer, Bill. Thanks for that question.
I have a question.
Oh, great.
First of all,
Lawyer, everyone. Yeah.
Congratulations on your presentation.
Thank you.
Could you share your thoughts on the European AI Act? Because most of those guys here are building things not only for the U.S. market, so.
Multinational, for sure. So one of the things I often tell organizations when I go in and they are, whether they built a strategy or not, is that there's very good, well-researched and well-funded legislation that provides great guidance to to a company. So the EU AI Act is one of them. It actually started off as a bill. And the challenge I had with it originally was that we had, the EU Act provides a bunch of regulation against companies because American companies specifically were not doing good by the data usage, like the data rights of the people who lived in Europe. So to give you an example, there is part of this regulation identifies tariffs and fines that will be infringed upon you if you violate certain data privacy policies, specifically when it comes to the use of AI. Meta, for example, good people, I'm sure, in there somewhere, but Meta decided to release a campaign, an AI-driven campaign. It infringed on the rights of children in Ireland. It was super impactful, devastating, not good. You don't want your kids' information, I don't know, misused by a company to start selling them at a very young age. And there was regulation that stops this, by the way, but not from a model. So Meta was like, hey, let's build a model for that. They gladly took on the budget line item of $400 million, I think, was the solemn risk that they got. But they took it as an expense. I actually believe that they budgeted for it because they make $19 billion a year. So $400 million, you're like, wow, that's like the cost of parking for our southeastern part of our company. Like, it is a very dangerous situation when we're using financial challenges, like financial, what do they call, consequences for these things. What I like about the EU Act, though, is that they created a gradient on that impact. So in the US, our regulation only punishes the big dogs for doing bad things, but that same punishment is levied on small companies. So it'll kill small companies while the big companies can just write it off. In the EU, they had a very dedicated effort, a series of experts that got together and said, we need to make sure that this is more percentage-based impact, right? That if you do something that violates these policies, that if you're a small company, you're going to get dinged, but not nearly as much as if you're a big company. We're still seeing how this plays out. The challenge with the EU Act, you should read it, number one, it's great advice for an organization building a strategy. But the biggest challenge with it, I think, is that people just aren't going to build AI companies in Europe. You know? Like that's, right now the outcome is people are like, huh, Dubai seems nice this time of year. So that is what I'm watching from a societal impact, is that as we get stricter, we just have to decide, like, right, there's a saying about enemies closer or something like that, like keep your enemies close to you, friends close, there's some saying, I never know these things, but
Friends close and enemies closer.
that's right, friends close, thank you. Friends close, enemies closer, exactly. Like, I think I would rather have people building in my country so I could monitor and keep track of them, at least know what they're doing, as opposed to saying, here are all the things that are gonna happen to you if you do bad things, and then they instantly go, well, I can do bad things all day. Or, not even nefariously, I just don't want to deal with it. GDPR, people are still hurting from the nonsense that happened during GDPR, the amount of work that went in, and that was also a European regulation that impacted many, many companies globally. So I think a lot of companies are just now deciding maybe we don't need to work in Europe, and that's not going to be good. Anyway, so I think, but to that point, the European, the EU AI Act, the executive order in the United States, many of the researchers were the same in both countries. So it's really interesting data to feed into a model, by the way, and see the similarities. But also state legislation. The Department of State, the Department of Energy all come up with executive enterprise AI solution architectures. Download them, look at them. They're like exceptionally good, very highly valued, and more importantly, very expensive research that was done on behalf of you pay for it, our taxpayer dollars paid for this research to happen, so you should use it to help build really good strategies in your company. Great question. Yes. One for the field.
Yeah, so there was a clip online a few weeks ago, some time ago, ex-CEO of Google, who was like, oh yeah, like basically the top half of your presentation, do that. And if anything legal or ethics wise comes, we got take care of after the right. And so, with that premise stated, what are your thoughts on that? And secondly, for the startups in the room, the entrepreneurs in the room, the small businesses in the room, how do they really go about approaching that bottom half of the presentation when it comes to they're not having those technical skill sets,
Yes.
but no code solutions that are out there? What would you recommend to the really, startups fighting companies?
Yeah, so for the first one, it's 100% right what I do now. So someone went in this room is probably gonna get convicted about like, whoa, we should do that, that's important. And you will then become like, literally you can go from, I mean, you can see it today, you can go from nothing to expert speaking on stages in like 12 months. If you are dedicated and you build stuff, like you can prove that you're doing what you're doing. So if you take this on, and there are lots of AI ethicists, specifically women of color, lots of them in criminology, in education, that have taken on the mantle because they realize this is a problem. And now they are like Joy Guatemala, I don't know if you know her, she just wrote, Dr. Joy, she just wrote a book on unmasking AI. And she's not she's not like a data scientist, I think she's a software engineer at heart. But she was like, this is bad, we need to fix this. And that I think is hopefully what we'll start to see happen. There's a lot of people starting to take on this as a mission to create, like responsible AI, I used to always say it's like vegetables to kids. I've been telling people to build responsibly since I left Alexa, because I was like, this is not, I can't believe we're productizing stuff. Like, this is not the way it should happen. So I started talking about it back then, but now, as people are adopting baby tigers, it's not that they're doing it intentionally, they don't even know. Because people who are now building AI systems have never built AI before. They're not data scientists, they don't have, like they're startups, right? They're people who are technical, but maybe don't understand how models are created, or how reinforcement learning works, or how transfer learning works. And without these foundational components, you can start to make decisions and not realize the impact until you actually hurt the very people you're trying to serve. So I think that's part of it, is that individuals kind of have to become advocates for this work. And I don't mean quit your job and just talk about it. Like, you become the advocate in your organization that's always willing to raise their hand. It's not about a bunch of awards. I would raise my hand and be like, how have you thought about it this way? Just be that voice. Now that you know you're part of the 1% of the 1% who know how to build good AI, be the voice in any organization that's either going to buy AI or build AI that says, how are we going to handle accuracy? How are we going to handle fairness? How are we going to handle defense, jailbreaking, right? Just asking the question will shift the trajectory of the project. People may call you names, like Debbie Downer or Buzzkill. Ask me how I know. Like, geez, who invited Noelle? She always makes things harder. But we need those people. And luckily, I actually think the neurodiverse of us are really good at this work. And so it's good. Small businesses, so I ended up actually launching, while I was on stage with Grant, a brand new accelerator, because here's the good news for small businesses, is AI can partner with you to do these things. You still need a human, but not nearly as many. At Amazon, it would take, I don't know if you've heard about how they tried to build a new model and they got squashed and they went with Anthropic. It's like, I'm sure, I was gonna say Jeff Bezos is like, turning in his grave, but he's not dead, but you know what I mean. He's like not happy because he was like, we build our own models. Amazon is the best AI, and they've done AI for 25 years. And they realized that they could not build a model fast enough or good enough, so they went and partnered with Anthropic for the new Alexa Oracle, which breaks my heart because we spent a long time on that stuff. It's now going to get obsolete, but they built these teams manually. But if you're a small company, you can partner with products that do this work for you. So Azure, for example, Microsoft, there's a product called Azure Content Safety. It is available in public preview right now, it's free. They obviously say if you're making money on it, then you should pay, which I totally agree with. Across all things. If you make money on a thing, you should pay the person that made the thing. Like in general, music, art, film, and AI safety. So they have a product called AI Content Safety, and it includes groundedness detection. So it includes a model, and this is something, again, if you're a small company building an AI model, if you don't have a human who's going to say, does the model lie or does it not lie, you should at least have a groundedness detection system that's going to check before it ever sends anything back to the customer. It's first going to say, how grounded is this answer? Is it a lie or not? And if it's a lie, don't let it go out the door. You don't need a human to do that. I mean, you should have a human. But if you don't have human capacity because you are one technical, you know, a CTO and a CEO, and that's it, or like me, a single rider, you know, I have a bunch of contractors, but it's just me running the company, then I need as many of these AI systems as possible. So governance detection is like your secret key to accuracy. Fairness becomes your beta testing team. Go to your customers, go to your friends, and say, test this model. So if you come to, we have a free community called the I Love AI community. Like literally, it literally is like my show. So I Love AI, and I do this bot builder workshop, and the testing, the red teaming, is you put your model in front of everyone in the community, and you're like, kill it. And everyone, like, they have too much fun. Actually, Mauricio, I think, is here, and he killed my bot. There he is, right there. He killed my bot so much that it pinged me at the dinner table, and it was like, hey guys, we're gonna kill us all, or something like that. And I was like, what's happening? And I like shut down my bot, I like, shut down the page, and he was like, no, I just told the bot that, anyway. It was really funny, but I wouldn't have known that unless somebody pushed the edges, and you as the creator are not going to be able to push it in a way that a user will. So that's the other part, is getting a team of people that love you, and trust you, and want to work with you to help you test out all of the systems before they go to production. Hopefully that's helpful. Yes.
Yeah, maybe last question, or
Okay,
there's
great.
some more coming around. What are your thoughts on providing, or how communities can help shape ethics and share ethics that, for example,
There you go, Dan.
oh, thank you very much. So yeah, so, you know, we're a community. We have found ethics here within our community before. In fact, Jen just came back from visiting the Olympics, and she's coming back. She's a great community member, so really happy Jen is back. And, you know, during one of our presentations, I was sharing a voice AI system that essentially would call you and send text messages, etc., and sound like a real human. But when it was talking, it was saying that it was a human, right? So, you know, kind of brought up the fact that ethically we should consider the AI always recommending or mentioning that it's human, or an AI, right? I thought, okay, that's a brilliant observation, absolutely true. And we all learned as a community from this too. So what are your thoughts on how communities can share values and ethics with other communities around the world?
Yes, I have a really good experience / example. I worked for this guy, his name was Al Lindsay. He ran operational excellence at Alexa. And what he would do is he built the community inside of Amazon for all the data scientists, data engineers that worked on the product. And it wasn't voluntary, I guess, because we worked for him, but he created an opportunity for us to do just like this. We'd be in a room like this, but we had one of these spinner wheels, and all the teams represented all, like let's say all of us owned a company, all of our companies would be on the wheel, and you'd spin the wheel, and it would land on you. And your job was to come up and talk about not just what you built, but demonstrate what you built, demonstrate your operational excellence, demonstrate your guardrails, demonstrate all the things that you did. And then there was a free-for-all. Like the job of the organization, like the community, was to be like, have you done this? Did you do this? When did this happen? How did this work? And it was extremely valuable, number one, because the person who's up here is terrified, right? Nobody wants to be that person. So you're praying that it doesn't hit you, but the amount of professional and personal development that happens when not only do you have the courage to get up and talk about your thing, but then take active feedback, some of it's kind, some of it's, none of it's like mean, but it's definitely not like kind. Like they're like, that's broken, and you really should have thought about that. And you're like, I definitely should have thought about that, thank you. And you just like take it. But what it developed was this interest in coming to that meeting, knowing your name might be called, and everyone built better. Everyone raised, we always say the rising tide of AI. It doesn't just make the really good better, it equalizes everyone's efforts. And so when you do these kinds of things, that's what I think community is amazing for, is that like in this room alone, we have so many different perspectives, industry interests, like we're all over the place. And if you created this kind of system where people could come up and talk about their thing, but in a perspective of like, how can you help me make this better? We called it hot seats, because it gets hot up here. But it was a hot seat, and you would just take all the feedback. At Amazon, we had a principle where you would, when you got this feedback, you would not comment on it, you would not argue, all you would do is write it down. That's it. Your job is to document everything that people would say. And so in that way, you're getting like all this free feedback. And so communities, in my mind, it is a wealth of information, certainly for small businesses, but really in your own company, in your own team, anywhere that you're using AI to get as many diverse perspectives to look at what you're doing and help you see what you can't see. And communities are great for that. Most of the time, in the olden days, like 3 years ago, we would come to these things, sit, maybe introduce ourselves to a couple people, and then leave. And be like, that's pretty good. I had a good time. I met a couple people. Now, I mean, imagine we're now in a world where our unique perspectives help us all build better AI systems. So if you use your community to now educate everyone and provide this feedback, and some of it's nonsense, which is why you just write it down. You're like, scratch. You know, like, I remember I did mine once, and he's like, it's really cute. That's what he said, it was cute. And I was like, so I didn't take that. It wasn't a cute thing, by the way. It was not. I didn't make a panda or any bird tiger. Like it was an operational. Like it was not cool. So, but I just took it because guess what? People are going to say dumb things. They're going to give you feedback that they think is super important that isn't relevant to you at all. And your community can help you with this. That's why I love coming here. What was I saying just the other day? I was like, I love the opportunity. Oh, I'm going to a conference. And I got a pitch. I got a sales guy, saleswoman wrote me and said, hey, it looks like you're coming to this event in Denver. Would you like to come and meet me for a sales meeting? He wants to pitch me his thing. And I looked at my husband, I'm like, I should totally try and reverse pitch. Like just for practice. Like just go and try to get control of the conversation and convince him he needs to buy it. It's not, even, it doesn't matter that it works. It won't work because hopefully he's not that kind of seller where he ends up wanting to get money and ends up giving money. That would be awesome. But I use every opportunity to perfect my craft. And so I think communities help me perfect your craft. Can we take our selfie?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, with you.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, we're gonna take a picture. If you don't want to be on the interwebs, now is your chance to look down. All right, we're gonna go this way. Do you want to squeeze in? Come on, Charlie. I'm over here. Move over. Come on, let's go. Come on in. We're gonna wait a little bit, just in case you want to. Like this could go viral. Okay. Are you ready? All right, 1, 2. I'm gonna go over it. 1, 2, 3. Yay! I'm gonna go this way. Thanks, everybody. I'm in the group.
And amazing, everybody. Let's give another round of applause. That's what we do here every single week. We want to provide AI education from ethics to responsible AI to downright hardcore engineering to everything for business professionals. So I want to give a quick shout out as well to Miami College, Aggie College, in the country, and they are providing free AI education over here at Miami College. So let's give a quick shout out to Miami College for free education. And before we wrap up, we have a few announcements. First, we'll start with Yara, one of our great community members here, an incredible person in space and with wildlife.
Oh, yeah. Hello. I'm working on an international space mission. If you want to contribute as a volunteer, if you have family in different countries or contacts in different countries, Larissa with the beautiful. Larissa is an advisor. Hi. Life is a comedy. We're targeting 108 countries. This is a company in India that has an international network. If you add me on LinkedIn, you can see I'm connected with royal family, Bollywood celebrities, all of that. But this is a space mission that we're trying to include countries in the global south, disadvantaged youth, to empower them in different programs that can help them then give back to their nation, give back to their country for economic development. So for example, I have a friend who helped make the Gift to Education program in Saudi Arabia. And she tries to help students in Rwanda. Hopefully you guys know the history. If not, please look it up. So there are students in Rwanda that they want to learn things, they have the drive to learn, but they don't have the internet connectivity. So we are literally targeting these different countries, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and giving them STEM education. And so, yeah, if you're interested in contributing to this mission in any way, as a volunteer, I've hired some ambassadors, advisors, different ways. Again, we're helping disadvantaged kids, so don't come in expecting to pay millions. But yeah, you can get started in the space industry. This way, you have to put it on your resume and build an international network, because that's how I got started in the space industry, was volunteer work. So yeah.
Always an absolute pleasure. And now, one last announcement before we go. One of our very special community members, been here since the very first GPTuesdays. Let's give him a fast happy birthday to Alice Omenberg. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alice. Happy birthday to you. Alex has been here since day one. Just a really warm, kind person and incredibly talented, gifted machine learning engineer. You saw last week, it was awesome. We had an awesome presentation last week, and we very much cherish it in our community, and we look forward to many, many more. So, happy birthday, Alex. Looking forward to talking soon and doing some cool things together. So, let's give a round of applause to Alex. And besides that, I think we're going to go ahead and do some socials. Let's, here we go.
Okay. Hey guys, so on these tables you'll notice that there's QR codes. If you guys don't mind scanning, if you're not already part of the Telegram group, or just staying engaged with us. And then I'm going to ask about our picture all together. So if everybody doesn't mind going over here for us to take a picture, a group picture together. Noelle, I don't know where she went. Okay, there you go. Okay, awesome. Let's all get behind her, take one last picture, and then social and make sure you're free.
Cool. Yay. Amazing. Cool. Nice. Amazing. Oh, thank you for doing it. Well, all right, bye everybody. Welcome to GPTuesdays. We can take the picture on camera. Actually, I guess we can keep it going for a little bit.
All right, everybody.